Religious fanaticism. Outside of a passing knowledge on what a Space Marine is, this was the extent of my knowledge of Warhammer 40k. I knew nothing of the factions, the different chapters, the conflicts, or the lore. After beating Space Marine 2, I know almost nothing more than I did before. The fraction of knowledge gained is so shockingly small that I almost resent the game for it. Not because it should have told me, but because now I want to know more, and that is not a shallow ocean to wade into. Now, I'm going to make this video shorter than my other videos because this game is, at its core, quite good, and I don't want to reiterate all that's already been said too much. Instead, I want to focus on my problems with the game, which are threefold: scale, repetition, and time. I love the scale of the Tyranids. They're everywhere and all-consuming. They make you feel overwhelmed. The Chaos Marines, not so much. They kind of just feel like your typical Call of Duty enemies with one or two intelligent variants among them. The only problem I have with the scale of the game is the whole 3 Space Marines approach. Outside of certain objectives and some of the final mission, it's mostly just you and your 2 companions against the world. This just feels weird to me because whenever we're on our ship, you see hundreds of Space Marines just chilling, doing nothing. You're telling me that retrieving this space mechanic is of utmost importance, but you can't spare more than 6 people? That just makes no sense to me. It kind of takes me out of the game a little bit because why am I always alone? I really enjoy the small moments that you get normal soldiers to fight with you, because it reminds me of playing the original Halo trilogy, where you would reload if any of your Marines died. I wanted to save the Cadians even if they're as durable as glass. My biggest complaint with this game is how repetitive it starts to feel by the last mission, and this problem only gets worse when you venture into the operations. Every encounter is essentially boiled into 3 steps: push through enemies, complete the objective, and go to the next area. Now this is the same general formula every game uses, but in Space Marine 2 it becomes increasingly painful at times. With no offense intended, this game started to feel like Destiny 1 missions. Kill hundreds of the same 2 to 4 enemy types, either hold a location, push a button, or kill a boss, and then move to the next area. While generally I don't mind this mission design, it started to get annoying when the missions dragged on for so long with the same patterns. I mean, the last mission was probably close to an hour, and it almost felt like mindless slaughtering for half of it. The repetition also starts to show in the combat. I love the executions, and I think their purpose in the combat is pretty decent, but each enemy seems to only have 2 or 3 animations. This isn't that big of a deal for enemies you only encounter once or twice a mission, but after ripping a Chaos Marine's head off for the 100th time, I started avoiding executions because it just didn't feel as cool or special anymore. While I appreciated having ammo boxes, I will say every time I entered an area and saw one, I sighed, because I knew it would be another guard the objective type of room. I would rather have ammo than not, but at the same time, sometimes I think it would have been more fun to run out of ammo, just having to pull out your sword and drown yourself in Xeno blood in hopes that the swarm runs out of bodies before you run out of life. When you're just shooting things, it feels like you're playing a library mission from Halo, but when you're swinging your sword around just for the enemies you kill to be instantly replaced, it feels incredible. You feel outnumbered in a way that few games can manage. This, I think, is the only time that Helldivers 2 and Space Marine 2 should be compared. Both games make you feel small and insignificant compared to the hordes of your enemies. Now, the time commitment this game requires to be fun is maybe an hour. After completing the tutorial mission, you will know all the mechanics and will only get better with them as time goes on. That being said, this game does have an issue with excessive time bloat in 2 distinct ways. Firstly, and the most important one, cosmetics. Now, I understand that you don't want people to play one mission and get the cosmetics they want. I do get that. My problem is that the missions are just generally so long, and as mentioned earlier, repetitive, that at some point it feels like you're playing Shipment just to unlock Damascus. Yeah, okay, it's not really that bad, but I do think that eventually it feels more like you're doing it for the reward than because you want to. And while that's not an inherently bad way to incentivize players, I do think that 35 games of it is a tad steep. when considering the length of said games. Now I know I said I was going to focus on my dislikes, but I do want to really quickly touch on the things I loved about this game. It's beautiful. The armor all looks fantastic, the guns and their effects, the animations, the explosions and the gore. Everything in this game looks not only polished, but like it was made by people who wanted to make it. The customization is vast, and I really enjoyed the system they use with rules for different sections of armor and the unlocking process. I like how the non-campaign PvE missions are the missions the other squad goes on. It makes it feel connected to the story and is a really nice touch. I really love the passive world building. So often you'd come across what look to be huge battles while nothing is said about them, you get more immersed by it every time. Whenever you walk over dead Cadian's bodies and see the mounds of Tyranids dead before them, it tells a story, and that story just feeds into the one you're actively being told. It makes you feel like you're losing even when you, the player, aren't. Finally, I think the multiplayer is a nice addition. It only has a handful of maps and a couple of modes, but it's generally a lot of fun. I can't see myself playing it for an entire day, but the classes are all fun and unique. Maybe not perfectly balanced, but fun at the very least. To wrap up this short video, I just want to say that despite its small, over-linear story, it was fun. It was entertaining, and it did make me much more interested in the universe. So if I had to pick between a 15-hour, $70 open-world game and an 8-ish hour, $70 linear story game, I'd pick Space Marines 2 every single time.